How would you describe your experience in IIFT and how did it help in molding you into the person you are today?
Before IIFT, I was an engineering graduate and working in my first job with Larsen and Toubro in a manufacturing company. So my mind was to build a career around manufacturing or research and development and nothing beyond that. But once I came for the IIFT program and studied so many different subjects, a language, and then interacted with quite a few foreign nationals and looked at different products and different markets and geographies, etc. Which I had only studied in my geography subject, but actually doing market research kind of programs, etc. It opened up my mind to a totally different horizon, which was not there, prior to that. And that I mean, like exploring new products, exploring new geographies, looking at anything from an end-to-end perspective, from a business perspective. I think that was truly the other side of things which we were missing out, when while doing our engineering.
Could you tell us about your experience of setting up a CKD assembly plant in Egypt, Mahindra's first one in overseas?
This was a time when India had liberalized and the auto industry from India was shaping up. And they were, it was looking good. It was looking good enough to go to export markets. So that was the time when we first, as per our strategy, developed the South African market. And then from South Africa, we wanted to go to the next big market, which was Egypt, which is also second highest in population, second highest in terms of automobile sales, etc. So we looked at that market, did a feasibility study, and understood that there was a good market in general because of the population and the demand, etc. But the market was very much skewed towards the policies or the auto industry policy that the country had. And clearly they were leveraging import duties, structured import duties to see more of car sales, more of cars below 1.6 liters and less of those bigger cars. So their whole industry was skewed towards cars under 1.6 liters. And so we had a big challenge because we didn't have a passenger car. So we had an SUV, we had the Scorpio, and we had the pickups. So although we wanted to come to a big market, but we didn't have the products. So we actually studied the market to understand, was there a potential opportunity for a new category of products? And after doing an initial study, we understood that yes, the Egyptian families are big, although they have got big size passenger cars under 1.6 liters, but they all would like to have a family vehicle. And that is where we wanted to plug in our Scorpio SUV. Then the next step was, where do we position it at? What price point would a consumer buy our product? So we also got to that. We answered that question through consumer studies. And then the next challenge was how to get that price, because our vehicle was over 1.6 liter and that attracted a huge amount of import duties. So the only way we could set up or start selling in that market was to do assembly. And also the regulations, the auto industry policy was very, very stringent, and it demanded a minimum 45% local content. So not only we had to invest in an assembly facility, but also ensure that 45% of whatever we did was locally manufactured. So these were two big obstacles in our way. And so we in different ways we addressed both of them, and we were eventually able to scout for companies with excess capacity, and we tied up with one of them, and we did multiple tripartite supply agreements between Indian tier 1 suppliers, Egyptian tier 1 suppliers. And so we got those agreements done so that child components could come from India to the Egyptian vendors, and they could then finish and supply to the assembly line. So that way we were able to meet the 45% local content and be able to produce a vehicle which was at which we could make money. But that was one side, and thereafter, once we were able to do all of that, then reaching out to the consumer and actually selling was another ball game, where you had to understand what the consumer was looking for, what were his key motivating factors, what would be your communication strategy, what would be your marketing strategy, etc., etc. But it was a fairly interesting journey, because the culture is totally different there.
Given that Africa is such a fragmented market and culture is so different than India, could you please shed some light on the approach for product development and market entry strategy?
So I agree with you that Africa is a large continent and it has 54 fragmented markets, and it is very difficult to get critical mass in any market, any single market. You can't get a critical mass whereby you can manufacture or make an investment. So it's very difficult. So let me first talk about the market entry strategy in general for Africa, and also specifically for South Africa. On the market entry strategy, as I said, there are 54 countries. But if I have to classify Africa into any segments, I would say there is South Africa as one clear-cut geography, Southern Africa. Then there is Northern Africa on the top, and then there is in between Sub-Saharan Africa. These are three different markets. If I look at it from an automotive perspective. From a tractor perspective, my classification would be different, but from automotive, it would be, in this kind of shape. And why I say Southern Africa? Because Southern Africa is the largest auto market in the whole of Africa, and it is a right-hand drive market. And South Africa does not allow used vehicle imports, unlike Sub-Saharan Africa, which allows used vehicle imports. And South Africa is one very stable and progressive kind of economy. So that's one region. And then when you go to North Africa also houses some of some big markets like Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria. But there the requirement is different, and then the Sub-Sahara is another story. So basically these are the three. So because of these three different types of market, your entry strategy would be different, and you cannot actually do the same thing everywhere. So in South Africa, which is a big market, progressive market, you can make forecasts, etc., etc. Import duty is also fairly low. It was perfectly feasible for us to export fully built vehicles from India into the country and position it properly and sell in the market. And we did that. And because the opportunity was huge, we thought we should take charge of the business. And so we opened a subsidiary where we had full control of that business. And it was the first, overseas subsidiary in distribution for the auto business. And if you come to North Africa, the markets are huge, but the regulatory, regime is different. So unless you, at least in the big markets, unless you assemble in the markets, you really can't, get into the market. So your strategy has to be different. So what we did was we went with a distributor come assembler, model, and that worked very well. It continues to work very well. And in the middle part of Africa, which is the Sub-Saharan Africa, we went with a strategy where we worked with distributors, pure distributors, because the markets are fragmented, small, because of dumping of used vehicles. The new vehicle industry is very small for light vehicles. I won't say that for two-wheelers or three-wheelers, but for light vehicles, it is tiny. So you really can't get critical mass. So you had to work with a multi-franchise distributor. And that's how the business would work, because in the end, the business has to be sustainable. It has to make money, at the end of the day. So with these three different kind of strategies, we had to approach, we had to get into different countries in Africa. So, and in South Africa, the good thing was that the market is not uniform. And if you see, there are three ethnic or four ethnic communities there, if I have to say that, and each of them has its own unique requirements, in the sense what they look for, what are their key buying factors, etc., etc., are different. And so there was space for us to also position ourselves. While the market was dominated by the Europeans, Germans, and all the manufacturers of the world, they produce vehicles in South Africa, and it was mostly set up during the apartheid regime. So you have BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen. Volkswagen is like the Maruti of South Africa. It's like that, The common public car is a Volkswagen. The Polo is a very common car. So also you have Nissan, Toyota, Renault. They all produce Hyundai. They all produce in South Africa. So that's on the entry strategy. In terms of product, without a proper product market fit, you can't get into any market. And every market is unique because the driving conditions are different, the local tastes are different, and the key buying factors are different. So, you cannot go with a standard product out of India. The driving conditions in India are totally different. Then the next thing which came about was on the taste. In terms of like the North African countries would like black color vehicle with light color interiors, and manual. In some countries, automatic was mandatory. If you go to Southern Africa, they would like white color vehicles with dark color interiors and with all security features. For every market, you had to look at which variants were suitable, and what was the product specification, and also if there were any tweaks required before we could sell it ahead. So product is very important, and what I would say is, unless your market is profitable and progressive, and the organization feels that it is a market to be invested, then only you will get senior management support.
How has working across different geographies helped you grow as an individual?
So, working across geographies and traveling to different places is a great learning in itself. Even if you have not, done any professional course, but simply living in another geography, working with another culture, observing things is a great learning in itself. And so observation is very important. So people are different, their behaviors are different, the way they work is different, and it is great to understand that and develop network. And so these things actually, as you do it from one geography to the other, that learning actually helps you to go to any new geography without any inhibition. So observation and keeping an open mind for new applications, new needs, I think all those things play an important role. And on the other side, there are traveling in these countries or working in these countries, there are many challenges. You never know what the commodities prices are going to be, next year, or you don't know how the harvest is going to be next year, or you don't know how the trading political environment is going to be next year, etc., how the exchange rates are going to pan out. So, working in all those kind of situations and dealing with it makes you stronger and makes you take the right steps so that you can handle those situations properly. Operating in many geographies also takes you to some beautiful places and exposes you to different cultures, cuisines, etc., which is also always a learning, as life goes on.
If you had to sum up your whole experience after passing out of IIFT and highlight some instances that made a great impact in terms of both personal and career growth, what would they be?
I passed out from IIFT in 1986. Okay, and that was pre-liberalization. The industry was in a bad shape, and the export business was, even the foreign exchange situation was, you would have studied, it was in a terrible state. There was no foreign exchange left with the government. So from 86 until now, if I look at my career, uh, and I can conveniently actually divide it into three equal parts. First 12 years, 11, 12 years or so, my job entailed trading. So I was primarily trading in an international environment. And then the second part, when I came back, so I was 2 years in Delhi and then 10 years in the Middle East. So those 12 years was purely trading. Although in the Middle East I was with a manufacturing company, but I was doing trading in engineering goods. Then after I got back to India in 97, late 97, so I was with Mahindra. And that was that part when I was still in Bombay till 2009. So that part I can call it exports. So there I was with an OEM and I was exporting out of India. Sitting in Mumbai, I was exporting. And 2009, April 2009, I shifted to Africa. So there I was doing from, say, port of entry to the consumer. So basically distribution. I was involved with distribution. So trading, exports, and distribution. So three buckets. If you say, you can call it. And I think each of them were different, and the requirements and demands were also different. And I'm sure the learnings went from one to the other. So in the first part, or in the first bucket, if you see in trading, I was all the time looking at opportunities in the region or in the export markets in terms of projects requiring engineering products in a certain domain, in the oil and gas, in the water wastewater segment, and looking at what projects are coming up, what could be an equipment requirement, tying up with global suppliers, whether it was in Europe, America, or Far East, and doing trading with that. And so there the learning was, keep an open mind, always look for opportunities, look at what the government is saying, look at all the projects coming up, build your network with the stakeholders, understand preferred supply sources, do negotiate with the manufacturers, organize for everything that you needed to do business. So that was one set. So when I got back to India, 1998, and joined Mahindra, that was the time when liberalization and the auto industry, were all shaping up very well, and the companies in India were thinking of looking at exports seriously. So they got me, and so I prepared this export strategy for auto for Mahindra and Mahindra. And thereafter, we have walked the talk. Basically, we have implemented that whole strategy, and so we are virtually present in every part of the world. So in that phase, it was more about, in the initial part, it was more about looking for channel partners, doing business market research, doing market feasibility studies, whether it was plain distribution or assembly or whatever, and then setting up these businesses and then running them from Mumbai. And that again was one type of business. And then when I moved out to the third part, which is physically in the continent, there I had to look at the consumer because how could I communicate to the consumer? How could I provide him efficient service? How could I enable finance? How could I market the product properly? How could I handle legal areas? How could I manage manpower? So the whole gamut of business from a distributor's perspective. So three clear phases, and but of course, learning was that your P&L is very important. Your customer is very important. Understanding, inciting the customer is very, very important, because if you can incite the need, then you can communicate and market it as well. And also you must have the guts to say this will work and this will not work.
What would your advice be to the current batches to make the most out of their MBA?
One thing which I see, and I've seen a lot of students passing out of IFT going to domestic market. I know domestic market is thriving, and it's very good. Whatever you invest, you will get results somewhere or the other. But believe me, there is a huge market outside India, and if the country has to achieve the 5 trillion aspiration, export has a very important contribution to make. And if you guys don't get into exports or international business, then there's a tough call for the rest of the country. So I think you must look at international business as a career. Since you are all at IFT and you have an orientation towards international business, leverage that. I've seen some very successful guys in international business coming out, from IFT. So make that as your career, because it's really very rewarding, and the opportunity that you get to travel and is also phenomenal.